Good morning, you guys. It's your boy Ben Mahari here, representing Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the basketball community. If you want more basketball content, tune in to Basketball Conversation every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. It's where we discuss basketball-related topics, news, debates, and everything else in the world of basketball. If you are new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to get all the latest notifications when I start dropping videos and live streams. Well, yesterday, I did a historical perspective video about the career of Chris Webber. Now we're taking it to the next level because this time around, we're going to discuss upon the 2001-2002 Sacramento Kings. Now, I've already done a historical perspective video on the 2002 Western Conference Finals between this Kings team and then the two-time defending champion LA Lakers at that time. But that was an historical series. But to talk about this team, though, in general, this was a team that was basically a championship contender that was basically building up in the making. Okay, now it all started back in 1998 when the Sacramento Kings made the bold trade, getting Chris Webber from Washington. Okay, for Mitch Richmond and Otis Thorpe. Now, originally, Chris Webber did not want to be in Sacramento, and for the reason is Sacramento had not even reached the playoffs since 1984, and so it has been almost a long time since they've been to the playoffs. And more importantly, they have not won a playoff series since then. Okay, they only made the playoffs once in '96, but they have not won a playoff series up until '84. And that Kings team was constructed very, very well. Surprisingly, by many people, they thought that this team wasn't going to go anywhere, but they built this team through trade and through the draft. Um, they traded for they basically signed Vlade Divac to a contract. Okay, they drafted Peja Stojakovic. They drafted Jason Williams. Okay, and those core players became the foundation of this 2002 title contending team. In 1999, the Sacramento Kings pushed the then defending champion, Western Conference champions, the Utah Jazz, to 5 games and took them to overtime in the fifth and deciding game, where they ended up losing them in the end. But that team was basically the microcosm of what they were going to be a few years down the line. Now, as time went on, starting from 2000, their newest rival became the LA Lakers. And not just by Kobe and Shaq, but by the influence of Phil Jackson, who won 6 championships with the Bulls of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. And that team continued to improve. Now, through those trades, they signed Nick Anderson in 2000, okay? And then they also brought in Tony Delk. They brought in Scot Pollard there too as well. I mean, this was a team that was basically slowly building a title contending team right in front of our eyes. Now, they made the playoffs in A seed in 2000, where they ended up meeting the Lakers. Although they pushed them in 5 games, the Kings were proven to be a stern test for the Lakers. Many people thought that the Lakers were supposed to sweep the Kings, and they basically nearly did. But the Kings showed heart and resilience in that 2000 playoffs, and despite losing it in 5. Then the next year, they made a bit bolder trade. They traded Corliss Williamson to Toronto for defensive specialist Doug Christie. And as a result, Nick Anderson basically moved from the starting lineup to the bench. And that team improved big time. Now, that team ended up winning 55 regular season games and basically won their first playoff series against the Phoenix Suns in 2001. And that time they improved their bench. They basically brought in Bobby Jackson and basically also added Hedo Türkoğlu. Those two guys were going to be the key components for that team the next year. Now, Peja Stojakovic had the best year of his career at that time, when he basically averaged 20.4 points per game and won the most improved player award. And so, actually, no, I take that back. That was actually Tracy McGrady. It was Peja that won it. That basically was a close second place. And so that team ended up facing again the Lakers in the second round. But by that time, the Lakers were on their incredible winning streak and basically blitzed through the entire Western Conference playoffs and swept the Sacramento Kings in 4 straight games. Now, the big fear at that time is that Webber was going to be a free agent, and he was very, very close of possibly signing with the Orlando Magic at the time with Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady. But he changed his mind and ended up staying in Sacramento for a 7-year, $127 million deal. And it paid off big time. And also another key move that they made during that offseason too, they traded away Jason Williams to Vancouver for Mike Bibby. And Mike Bibby at that time was in his 3rd year in the league, and he was putting up big time numbers. All right. In that year, in his first season in Sacramento, he averaged 13.7 points per game, but he was relatively playing for a losing franchise in Vancouver. He was During that period of time, he was probably one of the top 10 best point guards of the early 2000s. Okay. Now during his three seasons in Vancouver, the man basically averaged 14.7 points per game, and basically he was shooting right around, right around 45% from the field. I should say 45% from the field. And so he was basically a guy that could shoot the ball, who basically can control the game and didn't have to make reckless plays or basically try to go for spectacular plays on every possession. Because what Jason Williams was, despite his brilliance for ball handling and was a pass first point guard, he was basically a turnover machine waiting to happen. And for the Kings to try to get to a title contender, unfortunately, Jason Williams was not going to be their point guard of the future. And so they made the trade, and it paid off dividends. And despite the fact that Weber only played 54 games during that year, he averaged 24.5 points per game. And Peja Stojakovic was basically averaging 21 points per game and was their second leading scorer. And if you think about it, that this though too, guys, the one thing that you got to also learn between those matchups between the Lakers and the Kings during that 2002 season, okay? During those games, okay? Here's a really interesting statistics that people don't know about. During those matchups with the Sacramento Kings, Peja Stojakovic was basically leading the Kings in scoring against those Laker teams. Okay, during their 4 regular season victories. Okay, actually 4 regular season meetings. Check that, my language. He basically was averaging about 20 to 23 points per game, and he was pretty much effective with spacing the floor and shooting the ball. They literally could not figure out how to stop him. Now, during that 2002 playoffs, unfortunately, Peja Stojakovic injured his ankle in the second round against the Dallas Mavericks, and this forced Mike Bibby to really step up and really play outside of his norm. Now, he did efficiently well against the Utah Jazz in the first round, but he really showed his stuff against Steve Nash. And then during the conference finals against the Lakers, the man was still putting up numbers and nearly led the Kings to the finals. Okay. Now, the one thing about that series was that this was a series that was to contrast the styles, because the Kings relied on ball movement, player movement, and basically taking the best open look, while the Lakers had their 2 horses of Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant, and they would use their top shooters to put the ball inside the Shaq and watch him go to work, or if he gets double teamed, space the floor and shoot the 3. And it was one of the best competitive series that you're ever going to get. Okay. And these 2 teams traded victories back and forth. With the one victory that really hurt the Kings the most was Game 4. You're up by 24 points, and basically was blowing the Lakers out of the building, during the majority of the first half, and then you allowed the Lakers to live around. Yes, the Samaki Walker 3-pointer should not have counted, but still, you gave the Lakers so many openings to get back into that ball game. And the key adjustment of that game was that Kobe Bryant ended up guarding Mike Bibby. And what they did to Mike Bibby was simple. Force him baseline and trap him. Give him 2 guys to trap him out of there, because he wasn't good at dribbling out of double teams. And it worked. Bibby only scored 3 points in the second half after scoring 18 points. And the Lakers crawled their way back into the game down to the final minute, down to the final seconds, where you guys remember Kobe was driving baseline. He missed a shot. Shaq tried to put it back up, but he didn't want to get fouled, so he put it up quick. And then Vlade slapped the ball away from Shaq, hoping that the clock would take care of itself. But it was a perfect bounce pass to the wide open Robert Ory, who ended up making the game-winning shot and tied the series up at 2 games apiece. That loss hurt the Kings a lot more than what people realize. Now, despite the fact that the Kings came back on a game-winning shot by Mike Bibby in Game 5, you could pretty much tell that the momentum was still belonged with the Lakers to a certain extent. And yes, the Game 6 was pretty much the worst officiated game I've ever seen in my life, to the point where I felt that the whole the whole second half was rigged. Okay? 27 free throw attempts in the fourth quarter for the Lakers, please. They end up losing by 4 points. And then in that Game 7, all right, that Game 7, the Kings had multiple chances to put away the Lakers, okay? But during that last and final game of that series, okay, the Sacramento Kings as a team, they shot 16 of 30 from the free throw line and shot 2 of 20 from 3-point range. And with the exception of Mike Bibby, who was making big shots late in the fourth quarter and overtime, okay, the Kings players were too hesitant and they were not willing to make the plays that was necessary to win the game. Okay, Weber, who was supposed to be their top franchise player, only scored 4 points in the second half plus overtime. Bibby had 13 points in the fourth quarter. Plus, he also had 6 points. He also had what was it? He had 4 points in the overtime. So he had 16 in the fourth quarter plus overtime. So he was pretty much the guy that was leading the way, while Chris Webber only scored 2 points in the overtime. He made 1 shot out of 5 attempts. And Doug Christie was beyond terrible. He shot 2 of 11 from the field in that game, and that was the difference, man. And the Lakers went on to win the series, and they won it 112 to 106 in a classic. And so that team was exciting. They could score points, but that 2002 team was much more of a balanced team. They were much more disciplined defensively. They moved the ball better, and they were getting better shots out of it. But that loss against the Lakers in the conference finals hurt them a lot. By the time next year came, they still had their window opportunity shut on them when Weber injured his knee, and he was never the same player again, and ended up losing Game 7 against the Mavericks in that conference semifinal. And then he went up against the Timberwolves against MVP winner Kevin Garnett. And Garnett had his way with Weber because Weber's knees were not right. He couldn't move laterally, and Garnett feasted on him. And so that team, man, they had what? 99, 2000, and 2002, 2003, 2004. They had six out of the last 7 playoff appearances. They all faced the elimination game, and they didn't win either of those games. And so it's really unfortunate thing because that team was really, really exciting, and they played their roles very, very well. But a couple of factors came into play. If Peja never injured his ankle, I think they would have had a chance. But Peja had an air ball during that fourth quarter in that Game 7, though, too, against the Lakers that really hurt too as well because he was just too afraid at the moment. But the other factor was Game 4. You can look all the way back to Game 4 when the Kings were blowing out the Lakers by 24 points and had this game completely in the bag, but they let the Lakers off the hook. They let them breathe. And the defending champions, they kicked it into high gear and did what great championship teams do, what great players always do every time. And I know there's going to be people that's going to think, well, the Kings got robbed. The NBA didn't want the Kings to win. It doesn't matter. In a 7-game series, normally the best team wins the series 7 out of 10 times. But only 30% of the time, the underdog ends up winning the series. Now, sure, the Lakers were the 2-time defending champions, but they were big-time underdogs because many people thought that Kings team was going to beat the Lakers and get over the hump. But it never was the case. The greatness of Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant came through when it was needed the most, and without the clutch shooting of Derek Fisher and Robert Horry, they would have not won their third straight championship without those guys playing their roles to a T. And so this team is going to be remembered as perhaps one of the greatest teams in NBA history never to win an NBA championship. And it's very unfortunate because this was exciting, and when they were at their best, they could beat anybody. All right. But tell me what you guys think in the comment section. Let me know your memories about this specific team.